I'm Ryan McCaffrey with IGN, joined by our executive editor of tech, Josh Norum. We just had the Apple September annual event. That means it's iPhone time.
iPhone season.
So let's start with a quick recap, Josh. What were we got 3 phones. We have, and what are they? We got, it's not small, medium, large. It's
So yeah, this is kind of similar to the whole Intel like tick-tock cycle, where now we're in the sort of the backside of the cycle. So the 10 was last year, so this year we're just getting a refresh.
The S cycle.
The S cycle, right. So we have the 10S, which is an upgrade of the 10. We have a brand new phone, the biggest iPhone ever made, the 10S Max, kind of a weird name.
Biggest screen ever. I think it's still a smaller form factor.
You're right.
Which we'll talk about more in a minute.
Biggest screen, and then we also have a sort of, I don't know how to describe it, like it's not cheap, but it's a cheaper 10 called the 10R.
Yeah, it's the 10. I have the 10 from last year, but with it's I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but cheaper components. Like it's instead of the OLED screen, it's an LCD screen, and I think the various casing and parts are not quite as premium as the 10 was last year.
Yeah, it's the first time we've actually seen, normally iPhone there's just 2 models that are new and then the old one. That's what your options are. This is the first time that they've actually taken the 10, which is all brand new, and sort of watered it down into sort of a mid-range.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in years past we've seen the SE and the 5C back in the day, and that seems to be what the R is kind of filling that void, but the R actually seems like it's a pretty darn good phone, really. I mean, price aside, the iPhones are all still pretty expensive.
I have a 10 also, and it was painfully expensive. And if something like the R would have been available at the time, I would have gone for that immediately. I mean, there are some drawbacks to the R. It has an LCD display as compared to OLED. Right. It has a much lower, pixels per inch. So, and actually the resolution is relatively low for a phone.
It's like 50% of the.
It's 1792 by 828. That's on the 10R, compared to 2688 by 1242.
Wow. Yeah, so that is a pretty substantial difference.
It almost sounds like they're calling it I think liquid retina. It's kind of funny, but I feel like we'll have to see it when it's in your hand and what it looks like. It looked pretty good in the videos, but yeah. I don't know. We'll see. There's some drawbacks. It only has a single camera lens instead of 2, so you can't do the real special portrait mode stuff. But it comes in some pretty cool colors. So.
And then the 10S is exactly what it sounds like, just a slightly upgraded version of the 10. But I think the real one, which had leaked ahead of time, everybody kind of knew it was coming. But the 10S Max, which this is the one I think I'm still paying for this thing, so I'm going to be on the hook for a while. But I had a 6 Plus before this phone, and the 6 Plus is my favorite iPhone I've ever had, and I've had them every 2 years since the first one. So I've had a lot of them over the years. And the thing that was great about the 6 Plus to me was, it was thin, the form factor was nice, but the larger screen was cool, but the battery life on my 6 Plus was crazy. I could get through a whole day of power using it at E3, just working, doing crazy IGN stuff, and no problem. But the 10, its battery life's it's good, but it's not as good as the 6 Plus was. So I feel like on this 10S Max, it's not actually the bigger screen size, because that's already pretty big. But it's not even the bigger screen size that would be the real draw. It would be the extra battery life. It's supposed to be good for another hour and a half on top of this, which is pretty impressive.
What's kind of funny though about the presentation is they usually just list the battery life in just hours. So now this year they had this more than the 10.
Yeah,
that's kind of strange.
They did it as a relative thing rather than an absolute thing,
right.
Which you're right is something to be a little wary of. Although I guess Apple does probably get the benefit of the doubt, because in years past their battery claims have been pretty accurate. It hasn't been that sort of they say it's 10 hours, but it's really 7. They've been pretty good about it, so we'll have to see about that. But yeah, what are you buying anything? Are you going to stick with what you got? Any of these tempt you?
Well, I think the only, it's funny, as a person with a 10, there's not really much of a reason to upgrade, really. But they did show off some new technology in the camera for the 10S and the 10S Max, which is also kind of a mouthful.
It really is.
I'm already tired of saying 10S Max.
Please, let's just go to 11. and not an XI, just 1 next year, please.
So they showed off this technology today, which was pretty darn impressive. I mean, I do some photography on the side, and I've never seen anything like this before, where basically you take a photo and then the camera selects that it's at a wide aperture, which will basically blur the background out. And then somehow the camera is taking multiple I think it's taking multiple photos at with multiple aperture settings, and it's just basically keeping them in case you want them.
Right.
And then via the software, you can take your finger and sort of slide along this scale and change the aperture from 1.4 to 2.8, 5.6, all the way up to f16, which is unbelievable.
Yeah,
so what that would show you in the real world is soft background, blurry, blurred background versus everything is tack sharp all the way back to the horizon. So that's pretty cool.
Well, that'll be fun to play around with. You'll be no doubt reviewing one or more of these phones as they arrive. Pre-orders starting on the 14th. They start shipping. They're available on September 21st. Josh, thank you so much. For more on everything in Apple and the world of tech, you're in the right place right here at IGN.